Living Adventurously is brought to you in partnership with Komoot, the route planning and navigation app that helps you make the most of your outdoor adventures. Whether you're cycling, hiking, running, or bike packing, Komoot's easy-to-use technology will get you out the door and exploring more of the great outdoors. You can see where I've been exploring by checking out the highlights of my journey on Komoot. Just follow the link in the show notes. My name is Alistair Humphreys. I set out on a bicycle journey around Yorkshire to speak to interesting, ordinary people who, in very different ways, are making an effort to live adventurously. I wanted to talk about what they do, about the barriers they've faced along the way, and to seek their perspective on some of the big questions that all of us encounter in our lives. Welcome to Living Adventurously. I've written here, needs intro music. Okay, here we go. That'll do. Steve Bate is an extremely handsome man, and I say that because he looks pretty much the same as me, and that's more or less where the comparison between us ends, for Steve is also a Paralympic gold medal winner. Steve has a degenerative eye condition. He's now lost most of his vision, and he will eventually go completely blind. When Steve first got this diagnosis, he responded in a perfectly normal way by going off to climb solo the 3,000-foot rock face of El Capitan in Yosemite. Steve has also won a 150-kilometre winter ultramarathon by fat bike because he loves bikepacking and cycling adventures as much as anything else. So perhaps there is some overlap in our lives beyond our dazzling good looks. And one of those overlaps is our enjoyment of the book Kiss or Kill, a harsh, brutal climbing book by Mark Twight, which we began our conversation by discussing. Speaking of that, I'm interested in the idea of trying to be an elite athlete at the ancient age of 42. Because I feel like I could be as fit as I ever was. I really feel that that's not a problem. I just can't be bothered nearly as much as 15 years ago. I'm not nearly so angry. I don't think Kiss or Kill, the book, would resonate with me as the way it did back then. Do you find that a problem?
Yeah, well, I actually read Kiss or Kill only a year ago, I would think. Actually, less than a year ago, because it was while I was training over this winter for the Track World, so training for the Velodrome, and it was my coach, who's not a climber, who had come across it and read it. Because I think Mark Twight's gone on to write a load of kind of S&C stuff. That's kind of what he does now, training. Because I think he trained the cast for 300, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He's got a gym called Jim Jones. Yeah.
So that's how my coach came across him and sort of said, have you come across this guy? And I bought his book, Extreme Alpinism, back in the day on a fairy tale dream that I was going to be this amazing alpinist, but actually that scared the shit out of me. So I stuck to rock climbing and not to alpinism. So yeah, I obviously knew his history, knew who he was. But yeah, when I read, it certainly got fired up when I read that. You do, I don't think you can read that book and not start to stir some of the anger that's inside you over, like, I didn't even realize was there. But, certainly some of those hellish track sessions that I was going in for that I knew were going to hurt and be horrible and nasty, I'd read a chapter of the book or, one of the short stories on the train going in and, him listening to lyrics of Skinny Puppy burying himself on some mountainside was just like, yeah, I want a bit of that.
And the essay about the guy looking in the mirror as you look in the mirror in the morning and you basically despise yourself for just having a boring life.
Yeah.
That's, what's your problem? I think I know. And then he goes off this massive rant. When I was late, from 20 till, 35, I was like, yeah, I'm going to kill the world now, but I can't be bothered anymore. Which actually, in my situation, I see as a good thing, but perhaps not if you're trying to win a medal.
Yeah, I think for me, the whole, it's really funny because winning medals is, I guess, what I'm paid to do. But for me, I see it more as that's the product of what I do. So I actually hate racing. Like I don't enjoy racing. I like being tested. I think if I could train for the rest of my life and not have to race, then I'd kind of quite happily do that. But yeah, I think for me it's always the measuring yourself and getting the most out of myself. Like I said to you earlier, how as a kid I always wanted to know if I had all the support around me, could I be the best in the world at something? And I always think I'm trying to. So we get given our bodies for free, and it's our most valuable asset. Yet so many of us neglect what we can do with it. And our body's a pretty amazing thing. So for me, trying to understand what my body can do or push it to the very limits of what it can do fascinates me. So I think that's still the driver to be better at what I do. It's not about having a medal around your neck. That's the product of what happens. And don't get me wrong, it's great when that does happen. That's kind of the purpose in a way, but for the paycheck. But yeah, it's much more about kind of breaking barriers down within yourself and what you think you can achieve and actually what you can achieve. Because a Paralympic gold medal or a world record, I didn't think were, like I said, at 35, that was just, you're joking with yourself. You got 2.5 years to get to a games, and you got all the support, but you've only got 2.5 years to become an elite athlete. It's like, well, that's not possible. But it turns out if you commit everything, and I mean everything to it, yeah, it is, and that made me realize that anything's really possible, I think.
It's very wise. I realised we started talking without me even saying who I was talking to. He's a true professional podcaster. So I'm sitting in the kitchen with Steve Bate, MBE, 2-time gold medal winner. How do you like being introduced as that?
On a podcast, it's probably okay.
Would you rather be introduced as Steve?
Yeah,
Or how about as Steve Batembi, the famous Ugandan track cyclist?
Yes. Yeah, there's a story in itself there, isn't there? Yeah, I forgot about that one. Yeah, it's a funny old.
So what is the difference between being Steve Bate, MBE, gold medal winner, 2-time gold medal winner, versus being Steve? Because they're two different beasts, aren't they? Or are they not?
No, well, I don't think they are. I think it's people's perception. I think that's like I always say, I'm just a normal dude. I'm just an average guy. I'm not super talented. I've never been gifted in anything. I know I might be rude in saying this, but probably similar to how you portray yourself. You've achieved lots of different things, and lots of different disciplines, which is, really impressive. And, I've kind of seen some of the talks you've done online and stuff where you kind of come across it, you put yourself across it like you're just the sort of bumbling idiot that kind of falls into these things and then seems to, make it work. But, I work very hard for the things I've succeeded at. I've had to work my ass off. It's like, it's never been like, I don't wake up in the morning and think, oh yeah, I've got this to do. Oh, this will be easy. It's, it just goes back to trying to be the best you can be and learn about yourself. And I like being in positions where I'm uncomfortable, I guess. And I like putting my body and my mind in positions where you're uncomfortable, because I think it's good to learn the skill to be comfortable at being uncomfortable. And I think I learned that in climbing, because when you climb quite often, it's not really, you get yourself in situations which you don't really enjoy. But I think it's good to be put in those positions, because that, for me, that's when I learn the most about myself and who Steve Bate really is. I think after I came back from Rio and we got to attend a lot of fancy functions and things like that, and of course everyone you meet at those things, the people who are supporting and all those sort of things, you're seen as a big star or someone very special, and they excuse my French, blow a lot of hot air up your ass and tell you how great you are. And I can see how footballers and big sports stars, film stars fall into this trap of
start to believe
thinking they're better than everyone else. And I was always very aware to keep my feet firmly on the ground because I'm just Steve, who's a bit of a dick. So I always wanted to, remain kind of true to that and not get carried away with myself. Like I've achieved some great things. Yes, I have. I'm proud to say that, but I don't think it's changed me. Just trying to be the everyday normal guy that, we all are. There's no need for me to have special titles or be seen in a different light to anyone else just because of what I've done. I'm just a person.
What's the swankiest party or thing or blag that you've had post Rio?
Well, there's a couple, to be honest. So obviously the Palace, meeting the Queen, and Philip was up there. To be honest, I wasn't going to go because I wasn't. I've never been a massive royalist, and we'd gone to so many things after the games. I was getting pretty burnt out on parties and drinking champagne, to be honest, which is not really my scene at all. But yeah, so I went to the Palace and got to meet the Queen and Philip. And this is quite a cool story, actually. So when I met the Queen, standing in this room in the Palace, and there's obviously the entourage that comes in before, which kind of tells you how you have to behave with the Queen, what you do, what you say, bow, curtsy, all that sort of thing. And anyway, I remember turning around. I was the first one in this group of people, and I remember turning around and seeing the Queen walk into the room, and it was just like, holy shit, that's the Queen, And the Queen is tiny, like she is so. I'm 6'2", and she is like, I don't know if she's 5 foot. She's tiny, and it's just like this gracious woman. It's like she just levitates, like she's Yoda or someone just into the room, and it's just like wow. And anyway, she walked up. We're all suited and booted, obviously, and you had to wear your medals. So I had 3 medals hanging around my neck, which I'm gonna. Have you ever held a medal?
No, I haven't.
Okay, we'll do this on the podcast so everyone can.
Do I not have to win one before I can hold one?
No, don't be stupid. No, that's daft. Anyway, so the Queen walked over, so I bent over to bow. The first thing the Queen said to me was, "I'm surprised your head is still on your shoulders with all that weight around your neck." And I just thought, you're a class lady. Yeah, nice. You are absolute class. And kind of shook my hand, had a bit of a chat. But yeah, just like I've been very fortunate to meet the royals a few times since then. And I'm blown away by the way they carry themselves in person, without the media stuff that surrounds them and what gets written about them. Actually, they're amazing people. And all of them are very funny. Like they're very humorous, which I think is great. I don't think they take themselves too seriously, but
which is a good skill to have. Full stop in life, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So that was definitely one highlight. But the other highlight was sitting in the Royal Box at Wimbledon on Sports Saturday, and that was sometimes when you go in the Palace, some of the staff and things around the Palace kind of make you feel a bit awkward because you're really like, I'm really not meant to be in that place, the way I am, the things I say, I'm not the most appropriate person. But going to Wimbledon was, I got an invite with Caroline, with a few of the other guys. And I mean, that was an amazing day, to sit in the Royal Box at Wimbledon. They took care of us so well. They were so grateful you had turned up to watch tennis. That was the thing I couldn't get. You're invited to the Royal Box and they're grateful you've turned up, so, wow. Yeah, that was probably one of the greatest sporting things I've ever seen, I think. It wasn't a final or anything. It was just in the middle of Wimbledon. We got to watch Federer play and Djokovic play, which was pretty amazing. But yeah, that's an amazing place. So yeah, those are 2 pretty good blags.
Yeah, they are good blags. I'm jealous of those. What is the difference between cycling as a sport and cycling as adventure or travel? You're telling me about cycling in Patagonia. What's the difference in the experience of those, or are they just totally different worlds?
Yeah, I like the only thing I think that's similar is you're sat on a saddle and turning your legs. I think what I do for a job is science. It's so scientifically driven now. which is a good thing, to be the best and to make the gains that you make. You have to be, you have to be, like they were saying, no stone unturned and all that sort of thing going into racing. So yeah, that's what I think, which is interesting. It's fascinating. Again, it comes back to, like what your body can and what your body can't do. We're journeying by bike is probably, I would think now, the biggest passion I have. I have got a visual impairment, so I'm going to lose my sight. So to me, that's the richest experience I can have, to travel through countries or cultures. I'm very envious of you cycling around the world. I wish I would have done that when I was a lot younger.
That deserves going to Wimbledon. How long is your bike race? Not very long. I deserve to go to Wimbledon, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Too right, you should. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You're far more famous than I am, mate. Of course you should. So I think I think I'll always ride a bike because I'm very passionate about, just being outside and enjoying the simple things that life has to offer, and getting your heart rate up and being out of breath is riding up a hill to see a views. So simple, but yet so fulfilling. And that doesn't, it's almost, I always say to people that, they always think, as an athlete, you must be so fit and it must be great. And I think if I'm at that end of the spectrum, if we look at the other end of the spectrum, which is someone who never gets off the couch and eats crisps and drinks beer, like I would say to people, you don't want to be at either end of that spectrum. If you can float somewhere in the middle and drift back and forwards between having a good time and pushing yourself, but also taking it easy and giving yourself, a break when you need it, then that's the place you want to be. What I do isn't, in terms of my work, I wouldn't really recommend that, because I'm probably doing some things to my body that I will regret in years to come. I probably will have injuries, even though cycling's a relatively low impact injury sport. But, in the positions we hold and with my back and things like that, it's the weights we lift and all that sort of thing that, it's not all it's cut out to be.
Yeah, no, I can imagine that. One of the reasons I'm cycling around Yorkshire is I'm really interested in the idea of home. So I'm wondering, what does home mean to you? Where is home for you?
It's a really, really good question. I've got a few of them, I think. So I was born and raised in New Zealand. I left New Zealand at the age of 22. And even in New Zealand, I was born in Auckland, but I lived in Wellington for a bit, and then also north of Auckland, a little place called Dargaville, before I left New Zealand, which is a very small farming community. When I moved here, I lived in London for 4 years, which was pretty mind-blowing to someone coming from Dargaville. And then through climbing, moved to Scotland. So I spent 12 years in Scotland and on the Murray Coast. And, that really grabbed me, I think. I think a part of me, maybe with the colour of my hair and stuff, I'll always be kind of, Scottish. I'll always have a fond memory of living in Scotland. And part of me, that will always be like a home away from original home, I think. And now I'm down in Yorkshire, and we've been here for 3.5 years now, I think, 4 years maybe. And, it's as good a home as any, for sure. It's a lovely spot of the world. And, it's an amazing place to be. I kind of feel fortunate that I've been able to live in such beautiful places. It's just kind of not planned. It's just kind of, that's how it's unfolded, really.
So you have quite a fluid feeling of home. It's just, you're quite comfortable where you are, basically.
Yeah, I think so. I remember when I was in London and I was doing an awful lot of traveling. I was on the road a lot and just journeying through places like going to Asia or Europe and traveling around with friends or doing different things. And I think I always craved coming home after a while, when you spend 6 months on the road or something, and, just think, oh God, I want my own shower. I want my own bed. There was always that feeling. But yeah, I think, home for me now is definitely Yorkshire. As I said earlier, I think in May next year I would have lived in the UK more than I've lived in New Zealand, which is it's a fascinating thing to get your mind round. I get a lot of stick from my friends and family in New Zealand that I race for Great Britain and not for New Zealand. So I think I'll feel a bit more cooler with that once I've lived in the UK longer than I've lived in New Zealand. Obviously, I still sound like I'm from New Zealand, but it might be a bit easier for people to, if I say, well, I've actually lived here longer. Yes. That's why I race with the UK, because I lived here longer.
You're starting to belong. Something I've spent quite a lot of time thinking about is the idea of making big changes in your life. So from one direction in life to another, and how hard it is to make that change. And there are practical things like time and money, but a lot of it is just inside our head that sort of stops us making these big changes. So I'm interested in your situation, in that you were a happy climbing bum and you start stumbling over rocks in the footpath, and gradually you notice there's something wrong with your eyes, and that has led to some big changes. So how was that initial thing of thinking this life here is now going to change?
For me, it was not easy at all. So I was training to become a mountain guide when I got this eyesight diagnosis, which I lost my driver's license straight away, and then was told I could, worst case scenario, I could go blind in 4 years. So obviously, I think it probably would have taken me at least another 4 years to qualify as a mountain guide, if I was even good enough. That wasn't a foregone conclusion by any means. And that was everything I had my hopes and dreams pinned on, and I kind of fell apart. I really struggled for 6 months in terms of finding an identity to, this is everything I'd wanted to do. I thought it was the dream job and that nothing could be better. And I actually went to speak to a friend because I just couldn't, although I had amazing support, I couldn't get around the fact that my life was over as I knew it. So I went and spoke to a friend, Karen Dark, who's in a wheelchair.
I know Karen.
Yeah. So I'd known Karen for a number of years.
Before? Yeah. From being around Northern Scotland?
Yeah. So Karen lived in Inverness. I'd actually I was a carpenter in a previous life, so I'd actually built a shed for Karen to put all her kayaks and all this madness that she gets up to in.
So Karen's in a wheelchair, that's it?
Yeah, so Karen had a climbing accident at 19. I think she was 19 or 21, something like that, on the Aberdeen Sea Cliffs, and she ended up in a wheelchair. So I figured she'd be a good person to go and talk to. She's been through that kind of, like her, she probably would have become a guide, I would think. So I kind of sat down with Karen and said, listen, I've just got this eye diagnosis, I'm going to go blind. And the first thing Karen said to me was, oh, great, you can race on the back of a tandem for GB and come and train with me in Mallorca. And, I was just like, no, Karen, don't understand, my life's over. It's like, and rightly so, she was just like, get a grip of yourself, dickhead. It's like, see the opportunity. And I think that's the thing, that when something dramatically changes out of your control, you naturally, I think, as people, I may be wrong in this, but you start to look at all the things you can't do. And you fall into this trap of this negative downward spiral of like, oh, but I can't do that, And actually, the reality was, all that had happened was I'd lost my driver's license. That was it. My eyesight hadn't all of a sudden changed overnight. It was exactly the same as what it had been as I knew it. So all that had changed was I'd lost my driver's license. So once I started to get my head around, actually, nothing's changed, I just can't drive anywhere. I then planned a trip to go to Yosemite and soloed Yosemite and El Capitan, in Yosemite. And, and that really gave me the belief of, like, hey, you can do anything you want. And then I guess that spark from Karen about racing on the back of a bike, I kind of pursued that because it was just this opportunity to get to a Paralympic Games was like, that surely that's impossible. And I thought I thought for me, trying to solo LCAT was impossible. And, when you achieve that, and I sat on the top of that in tears, just like, I can't believe I've just done this. It's 6 days of on your own, making decisions for yourself. You haven't killed yourself. Great. Nice one, Steve. You sat on top, it's like, wow. And that just, for me, that really blew my mind. It's just like, well, actually it's probably the first time in my life I actually thought anything's possible, and everyone tells you that. But I think until you have one of those moments for yourself where you actually think, yeah, generally, if you put your mind to something and you invest 100% in it, then it's probably achievable. So that was I came back from climbing and thought, well, in a way, I thought soloing El Cap, there's not really too many more things I can do in climbing that is, what's going to be better than that? So maybe give this biking malarkey a go.
Yeah, and the biking malarkey is going pretty well.
Yeah, it has its moments.
Tokyo calling, hopefully.
With a bit of luck.
Yeah. Your eyesight's getting worse, and you think you're probably going to end up going completely blind at some unknown point.
Yep.
How has that changed your approach to now? Or perhaps it hasn't.
No, it has massively. I think when I got diagnosed and I got told, right, you're going to go blind in 4 years, I think, I had that discussion with Caroline, my wife, who was my fiance at the time, which was also kind of unnerving because all of a sudden you're going back to your fiance saying, I can't drive now. And what I was going to do, that was a really cool job, I'm not going to do now. So, you have all sorts of emotions inside you about, well, is she still going to want to marry me and all these sorts of things, But yeah, I think we had a chat about that, and Caroline was amazing, and just she's like, right, if we bin off everything now, we can basically go and travel the world for 4 years, and my theory was I wanted to push myself and go and see everything I could and do everything that I possibly could while I had my sight, so that when I do go blind, I won't be bitter in the fact that I've wasted the time. I've just wasted away the time just thinking, oh, it won't happen to me. It won't happen to me. If I do go, or when I do go blind, I can look back and just think, God, I packed some amazing stuff in there. That's pretty cool. And then how it's still scary to talk about the thought of going completely blind, but I think how I get my head around that is like, that's when this whole other adventure starts, and it's like, wow, imagine living life blind.
Music and...
Yeah. So it's just, it's kind of, although it's massively overwhelming in one respect, it's kind of partly exciting in another.
That's an insanely positive way of looking at it.
Yeah.
But I think what's interesting is that the comparison that has with just the way everyone's living their life. I often think, when someone gets, say, oh, you've got this fatal disease, we're really sorry, you're going to die in some number of years, and that changed people's lives. But I have a fatal disease in whatever 50 years time, I'm going to be dead of the disease of life.
Yeah.
And yet a lot of the time I'm just trundling aimlessly around in life. And I think it's important to have a reminder, isn't it? Of, wow, what am I doing? I need to get on with stuff.
It is amazing that, being on the Paralympic cycling team, you meet some incredible people. You really do. And that could be people that have been born with a disability, or they've been involved in a bad accident. We get a lot of armed forces guys who have been injured. And everyone's got this kind of really amazing positive thing where, like, most of the time people are saying, I'm really pleased that happened to me, which is really interesting. For me, I think it was really the missing piece of the puzzle that I needed to really kick me onto that next gear. Like, I was adventurous and I had big plans and I liked doing things. But if I'm honest, I probably wasn't 100% committed to actually doing them. As a climber, I think everyone wants to go and climb El Capitan because it's the holy grail of climbing. But I'm not sure I would have had the get up and go to actually go and commit to doing it. And, it's that, when you test yourself on something like that, there's that big thing of failure, and no one likes to deal with failure. Where I thought, actually, like, for me now, failure is not doing those things, not committing to those things and doing them. If you go there and try and you don't succeed, hey, at least for me now, and Tokyo's a big part of this. Going back for a second games, the first games was really successful. In a way, I can look at it and think I've got far more to lose than I have to gain. Because if I stepped away now, we'd have a load of records in the books, a rake of medals, and you're seen as a hero. Where if I go back and I don't do that again, it's kind of like, well, is that failure? So yeah, it's a really interesting one. But I want to be tested, and I need to know what I'm going to be like in that situation. If I get to Tokyo and I have to defend these titles, that's a whole different ballgame of rocking up when no one has a clue who you are, and then all of a sudden you win, and it's like, oh wow, didn't see that coming.
And you're blind.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I met a guy earlier today, who you know, and he. I said to him, "I'm going off to see Steve now. What question shall I ask him?"
Oh God,
this is quite a hard question actually. He said, his baby daughter died, and I'm going to start crying to about this other guy's plumbing daughter died. His baby daughter died, and he's managed to see that now as the best thing that's ever happened in his life, because he's been so low, he can now face life with woomph. From here, it is onwards and upwards forever.
Wow.
So his question to you is going blind the best thing that's ever happened to you?
I think so. I think I kind of, that's some dude to, but I can exactly see where he's coming from. Like, you can't get much lower than that, I'm sure. I'm not a parent, but Christ, how you deal with that and crack on with a smile like he does is amazing. But yeah, I think for me it's one of the best things that's ever happened to me, I think, for sure. Partly because I just thought I was a bumbling idiot who tripped over everything and there was no reason for it besides I was useless. So when you're told, actually, no, you've got this problem with your eyes, you're like, oh, that's all right. I'm not a bumbling idiot who's useless. That's fine. There's actually something wrong with me. But I think it's funny how it takes something so, in my respect, not so horrific, but to really latch on to living, and living a full life. It really interests me why it takes something for us as people to go drastically wrong before we actually see the world for what it is and have to think, whoo, this is like a massive playground. Let's go and have some fun and, let's make the most of it. And yeah, it's a shame, isn't it? It's a shame it takes something like that to...
Humans are stupid.
Yeah, we certainly are.
So I'm one of the things I'm doing is cycling around trying to figure out the meaning of life by asking all sorts of wise and clever people, and you some questions. So if you just don't mind answering a few of these for me. So take one off the top. Feel free to ignore it.
Oh, okay. What would the 80-year-old version of yourself advise you to do? Does that advise me to do now?
Yeah, so what would the 80-year-old Steve say to you now? He'd say, Steve?
Be kinder to your body. I would think it'd be enjoy it, mate, because it's not going to last forever. Make the most of it, I would think.
It's pretty good advice.
That's what I'd hope I'd say to myself anyway.
Okay. Cool. Okay, next one.
So what advice can you give me so that I won't look back on my life I will look back on my life with satisfaction rather than regrets?
So that's you giving me some of your wisdom.
Ooh. You know what? This is funny actually. Because when I discovered micro adventures in what I do for work, kind of changed my life in a way. All of a sudden it was like I wanted to go on these big trips, but because of training and other commitments that I've got, I just couldn't do that. If I wanted to be I could do it, but if I wanted to be the best bike rider I could be, I had to make that choice, not that sacrifice, that choice. So when I discovered you, Mr. Alistair Humphreys, the person, the man, the myth, the legend, who sat in my kitchen, it was kind of like this revelation, and so it seems funny me sitting here, you asking for my advice when I think probably you've given me far more advice in a way that I could, that's been relative. I just trying to think of something that I would think the advice I could give to you would be carry on doing what you're doing, I would think, because a bit like I was told once about winning a gold medal, you'll never know the amount of people you've inspired You know, I think you've inspired far more people than you'll ever believe.
Oh, that's very kind of you.
And in a large, like in a much bigger scheme, you know, on the scale of kind of people, I think you know, from, you know, elite athletes to, you know, right from the other end of the people who have never slept on the top of a hill before. So I would think keep doing what you're doing, because you do it very well.
Thank you very much.
How's
That's
that?
very kind. I'll definitely keep that bit in the recording.
What purchase of £100 or less has mostly positive impacted your life recently? What does that say at the bottom?
Yeah, what purchase for £100 less has most positively impacted your life? So what £100 thing or less or ish has been a good thing to buy? I pinched that question from Tim Ferriss.
Oh, okay. I would say a slackline at the moment. That is that's my little micro adventure at the moment. I'm so like kind of narrow and single-minded in what I do. I can't start climbing again because when it's sunny, I'll stop riding my bike. And it's kind of, for me, it's kind of all in. So that's why I stopped climbing. Just like, I'm not climbing anymore. I have to ride a bike. That's what I have to do. Whereas slackline is one of those little sneaky things I can nip up into the woods for an hour, chuck the line up, take the dog, and just kind of wobble along a line for a bit, get out of that headspace of being that elite guy and that athlete who's got to do everything by the book, and just, you know, kind of what climbing used to give me. I think just be empty in your thoughts and just focused on trying to stand on a wobbly line.
That's a very good answer. I've got a slack line as well, and I love it. Have you got the one from Alpkit? Probably the same one.
No, I haven't actually.
I was going to measure it to say who could go the furthest.
Yeah.
Can you go the whole length of yours?
Well, I've actually I've got a few of them. I've just bought a 100-meter one.
Okay, you're much better than me.
No, I can't walk on it. This is dreaming big. I'd like to go back to Yosemite. There's a spike of rock that sticks off the cliff called Lost Arrow Spire, which is effectively the birthplace of highlining and slacklining. So I not only want to, this is again discovering what I can do, but I want to, once I stop cycling, I want to become a highliner. So someone who can walk basically a slack line really high off the ground.
Is that a thing?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So people do all sorts of amazing, you know, like I think there's the records just been broken in Canada for like walking a 3-kilometer high line, like stretched across these massive mountains over a lake. So
wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
But for me, you know, people do tricks on me, all sorts of amazing things. But for me, I want to go and see if I can high line basically. But I can walk about a 20-meter line at the moment, but it's not nailed on every time. You know, like I haven't, because I'm racing and I'll leave for Canada tomorrow. I haven't been on it for probably 3 weeks. So when I get back on, I'll fall off at loads and get really frustrated again. But that's kind of part of what I love about it. You know, it's kind of, unless you're doing it all the time, like most things in life, you're, you know, you get sloppy and useless at it. But it's kind of nice being back at square one again. You know, it's kind of cool to have
being
something.
A beginner.
Yeah. I like that.
Cool. That's a good one. All right, we'll do a couple more if you don't mind.
What are you proud of? Oh, that's easy. My ginger hair. That's what
Next
I'm proud
question.
of. What small things do you do regularly, which greatly improves your life? For me, I would think small things I do regularly. Walking my dog, actually, that's something that is just going out for a walk. It's something I never did as a activity. But yeah, walking my dog every day. It's kind of cool. It's all right, yeah. It's good, just good headspace, you know. It's like, for me, it's escapism. You know, if that's something even, you know, that's like the microest of micro adventures, you know. It's like, it's like sleeping up on the top of a hill. I've got this dilemma. If I don't sleep well, then that has a knock-on effect on my training. So, you know, but it's like, right, what little things, you know, what small things, like go and walk down some unknown path with my dog. So the next question is, what is the right balance between being selfish versus selfless?
This is a good question to ask of a professional athlete, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Crikey. How do you answer that? I think if I was single, this would be a very easy question to answer. In the respect, you do what you want. You know, if it's you're polishing your own ego to race and win medals or whatever that would be, that's easy. As soon as you have a second party, i.e. a wife in the picture and a rescue dog, I think those are ongoing conversations. I think.
Euphemism.
Yeah. I think, you know, like yourself in your past, you know, I want to go and do big trips and I want to go and have big adventures, but I'm also very acutely aware, even though I spend a lot of time away racing, and that's work, that's not fun. So when I come home and say, I want to go to Scotland on a bikepacking trip for 5 days with one of my mates, and Caroline says, oh, you've already been away for 3 weeks. You know, it's like, yeah, but that's work. You know, I want to have fun too.
Does that wash? Does she believe that?
Yeah, like, no, Caroline's amazing in that respect. Like, I think it took maybe a year or two. Like a funny one the other day was she went to the lakes wild swimming with a group of friends for over 3 days, 3 weeks ago or something like that, and came back and said, oh, how was your weekend? And I said, oh, well, I did 4 hours on my bike on Saturday and then had a double day on Sunday, did 2 hours on the road and then 2 hours on my turbo. And she just looked at me and smiled and said, you don't really have your weekends anymore, do you? And I was like, I don't think I've had any weekends for like the last 5 years, but yeah. So it's a hard, I think as you get older, you get better at managing, you know, that level between, you know, giving enough of yourself to the people that you love as opposed to stealing enough of yourself to be true to yourself. So it's, I like I say, I think it's one of those ongoing things where I think that Caroline knows me for who I am, and she can probably see if I'm climbing up the walls and need to get out. Then it's like, just go, mate. You're making my life miserable. So yeah. So I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I think that's the best kind of way I can answer that. I think.
Yeah, that's a very thoughtful answer.
I don't think it's fixed by any point. It's kind of like this moving scale of where you're at the time.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So
let's try another.
Go. What are you scared of? Probably. I was going to say, wear this. The thing I'm most scared of is not fulfilling my potential, I think. Again, if you go back to that question of what would your 80-year-old tell you, I think it'd be a frightening thing to get to the point where you know you're at the end of your life and you think, you know, you should have done more. You should have put down. I mean, I was massively inspired by your walk across Spain with your violin. Like, to me, that is, you know, what you're scared of, that is absolutely terrifying, doing that for sure. But I completely get why you did it. You know, I can completely, like, wow, that must be just, you know, an amazing thing to, you know, that first time you rocked up into a town square and, you know, I mean, absolutely amazing. But I think it's to not have those experiences and not fulfill what you're capable of fulfilling. Be a sad day, that, wouldn't it? I think.
Be a very sad day. Steve, thank you so much for.
Can I get a medal?
Can you get me? Yeah, go get your medals.
Right. Okay. I just want to give you one, but
give me one.
Well, you can have one if you want.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll do it on the radio because there's always a common thing that.
Shall I come with you then?
No, I'll go and get it. I'll bring it down here. Wait here.
I'm gonna wait here and eat all your mango.
Yeah.
Steve has adopted a rescue dog that is properly, poor little thing, abused as a puppy, and it's absolutely bonkers. He has taken on way more than having any kids, and he is a very, very lovely, understated, good man. And he has good mango. Here he is. Steve Batembi. Oh, it's a nice box.
I'm back. Oh, here we go. Right, so
Do they give you the box?
Yeah, they give you the box. Yeah. Best part of it, to be honest. So describe what you're seeing here.
Okay, it's not egg-shaped, but it's slightly egg-shaped, smooth wooden box. Rio 2016, Jogos Paralympics. It's nice. I really like the box. Oh, it's heavy as well. It weighs about 1 kilogram, I'd say.
Okay, so
right,
this will be cool.
Okay.
Like
there's not a snake in here or something, is there?
I wish there was. Now you said that.
I'll open the box this way, just in case.
No, you're going to. So wait.
Oh, wow! It
what's happening?
Rotates to open the thing. Wow, there it is. Oh, it's big, isn't it? Rio 2016. It's massive. It's like a giant chocolate mint. Oh, it's really heavy. Is that the reaction people have?
Yeah.
That is heavy. It's
so if I
how heavy is it?
It's
500 grams.
Yeah, bang on. Yeah, 500 grams.
500 grams of gold.
No, it's not gold. That's if that was 500 grams of gold, mate, I wouldn't have it. I'd be mortgage free.
Oh, would you? Rio. It says Rio 2016. Jogos Paralympics. It's a bit scratched.
It's battered. Yeah.
Then on the back, it has it in Braille. Can you read Braille?
No.
Are you learning Braille?
No.
Would that not be a good idea?
It probably would be.
Okay.
But yeah. That I can tell you what, that says Rio 2016 though. And if you look at the very bottom edge of it.
I'm going full on now. I'm going to put it on.
Where's your camera? You should take a picture of you with that on.
I'm now wearing the Olympic gold medal. Going to get... Oh, it's great. It's massive. What a feeling. What's the thing running through your head when this gets plonked on?
Disbelief.
Really?
Yeah. It's not a very good picture because the light's behind you, but that's all right. We were sat in a holding camp in Wales 2 weeks before the games, watching the Olympics and watching our friends racing in the Velodrome. Jason Kenny, Callum Skinner, these guys, Phil Hines, Laura Kenny, and you see the iconic them with the medal, holding a flag behind them, stood up, smiling to the crowd, and you kind of, the person I am, I picture that in my head, and instantly I wipe it out of my head because if you focus on the outcome, you've lost.
Really?
So you have to think about the process, not the outcome.
Okay,
that's the biggest thing, and I think mentally, best bit of advice I could give you for trying to achieve something. Do everything, focus on everything you can do right, and let the outcome take care of itself. Because generally, if you get everything right that you can possibly do, the outcome takes care of itself. So if all of a sudden, fast forward, 2 weeks, and you're in that position, standing in front of a wall of kind of paparazzi cameras with all these flashes going off, and which really helps when you can't see that well. And you've got this thing around your neck. It really is disbelief and surreal. It's like, for me, it really was, how's this just happened? In 2.5 years, I've gone from being a kind of a bum rock climber to standing on the top step of a Paralympic podium. It's like, the time went so quick. But yeah, it's an amazing thing to have. But the best part of having this medal is doing this, is giving it to people, and certainly to children, certainly to kids, because their faces light up, and and all of a sudden they start telling you what they're going to win a medal in and stuff, and it's just so impressive. The power this thing has with children to inspire is ridiculous. It's really, really cool.
The Olympics is one of the few times when the world feels like an actually good place, doesn't it? The whole world is rooting for people. I love the Olympics.
And you have winners and you have losers, but it's almost like the world sympathizes. When you see people that burst into tears because that hasn't gone their way, or where they've got on the podium or they haven't, and it's just, I think you really get the sensation, like athletes, you're just human, because quite often, I'm as guilty as anyone. It's like, you picked up very young because you did something more than everyone else. They call that talent, and then all of a sudden you're made in this factory, this sausage factory of medals, the Velodrome in Manchester, and you pop out at 21 or 26 or whatever, and all of a sudden, bang, gold medal. And everyone thinks, well, it's like you're robotic. So to be on the inside of that bubble and see it all unfold in front of your eyes is it's a special privilege, and it's amazing because you realise actually we're all just normal dudes, that ride bikes or throw javelins or do whatever we do. We just kind of work really hard, I suppose.
Yeah, well, it's a hell of an adventure. I should be cheering you on.
Certainly is.
From in front of my telly, eating a donut and drinking a beer while you're in Tokyo doing the hard work.
If you could message me and say that would make my day.
I'll send you a picture.
Yeah, that would be ideal.
Cool. Well, thanks so much, Steve. It's been a real pleasure to chat to you.
Thank you. Cheers. Cheers for popping by.
Pleasure. Cheers, Steve. That's cool. Why does it rattle?
So these were the most inclusive medals that I've ever been. So I've got a bronze one. It makes a different noise.
So
the 3 medals made different for deaf people, for blind people.
That mistake must happen all the time.
Yeah.
When I first wanted to make an audio book, back in the olden days, about 10 years ago, I phoned up the Deaf Institute and said to them, "Hi, I want to make an audio book." And they were like, "Dude, phone the blind people." But even then, when you were saying it, I was having to do that calculation in my head.
Actually, yeah.
I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Living Adventurously. There's show notes from every episode on my website, alistairhumphreys.com/podcast. If you have enjoyed it, please take a screenshot of your phone and pop it up on social media, or leave a review with your podcast provider. It makes a massive difference. Thank you very much. To make this podcast happen, I teamed up with Komoot, the outdoor planning and navigation app that helps you explore more of the great outdoors. One of the many ways Komoot helps you have better adventures is through their highlights feature. Komoot highlights are recommendations from local adventurers in the area you want to explore. They could be a great cafe, a particularly beautiful stretch of trail, a lookout point, or a well-stocked shop. These recommendations appear on the map as highlights, large red dots for popular highlights, those with lots of additional information and images, or small red dots for highlights that have fewer comments and images. Inside a hint, the size of the dot doesn't necessarily correspond to the quality of the highlight in real life. It only indicates how many people have visited the highlight before you. Perhaps it's a little less visited, and therefore all the more special. Your very own outdoor experiences and some inspiring highlights are waiting for you. Go explore more with Komoot. Head to komoot.com/G and use the voucher code ADVENTUROUS to claim your free region bundle.